Part 55. A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 541. The Shaggy Principality is the country on the elephant owner's back. It is also a country founded by the fur tribe. It's unclear how many years of history it is, but it must be at least hundreds of years. When Lucci carried Robin on the back of the elephant master, Enel was already looking at the city wall in the distance. The city wall can't be called magnificent, but it looks very solid and has a calm aura. Lucci looked at the city wall in surprise, then smacked his lips and said, "Can those beasts really build this kind of city wall?" As soon as he finished speaking, the book in Robin's hand hit him on the head. "It's not a beast, it's a fur tribe, and one of the many intelligent races on the sea." "Don't say such disrespectful words," Robin lectured. Lucci shook his tail in displeasure and said, "Those guys will become our enemies. I am despising them." "You don't understand." Robin didn't correct Lucci anymore. Lucci also didn't use the word beast to describe the fur tribe. But one thing he said was right, that is, the fur tribe would become their enemies. Because although it seems that the Warhammer pirates have nothing to do with the fur tribe, the two sides have barely met before, and they should have no grievances. But in fact, the two sides have deep grudges. First of all, the Fur clan and the Kojiki clan of Wano country have a very close alliance. Hundreds of years ago, the two parties were as close as one family, and they still are like one now. And among this generation, Kojiki Odin of the Kojiki clan is even more important. The two Grand Dukes of the Furry Principality, Nico Viper and Duke Inarashi, were accepted as retainers. Therefore, it can be said that all the fur tribes in the Furry Principality are the power of the Kojiki family. And the Kojiki family has now suffered in Wano country. Kaido even killed Kojiki Odin. This was originally a blood feud. But unfortunately, the Warhammer pirates and the Beast pirates are a hardcore alliance. Kaido and Orgrim have a close relationship. The close relationship of marriage between children. Therefore, the grievances between Kaido and the fur tribe will naturally involve the Warhammer pirates and Orgrim. So theoretically speaking, even if they have not seen it yet, yes, but the fur tribe is indeed the enemy of the Warhammer pirates. At the same time, this time, Robin and the other three came here to take away the historical text of the road sign that the fur tribe had guarded for hundreds of years. Could it be that can we still expect the fur clan loyal to the Kojiki clan to give the text of the history of the road sign to Robin and the others? It is definitely impossible, so even without Kaido's relationship. Judging from the current situation, the two sides are still in a hostile stance. In fact, I was more surprised that they built a city wall here. Does it really make sense? What kind of powerful army will climb up from under the Elephant Lord? Become an official, Anilu said with some emotion. Theoretically speaking, it is impossible, so you are right, this kind of city wall is indeed almost meaningless. Robin nodded and said, "The city wall is used to resist the organized army. Generally speaking, there is no organized army that can land on the back of the Elephant Lord on a large scale. And most of those who can come up are those with some ability. Man, this elephant owner has climbed up, but he can still be stopped by a city wall. Isn't this a joke? That's why Enilu thinks this thing is useless. Maybe it's because their brains are not working well. Let's not talk about this anymore. Brother Enilu, what should we do?" Robbery directly, Lucci moved his claws and asked. "Although we are pirates, we should say hello first," Enilu said with a smile. Then, the three of them walked towards the gate of the city wall together. As the trio gradually approached, the guards on the city wall also discovered the three of them. "Stop, this is the territory of the Furry Principality, no one can enter. Who are you?" A lion fur tribe had a saber hanging on his waist and asked in a deep voice. This man was Sicilian, a member of Duke Inarashi's musketeers. Ever since Kojiki Odin was killed by Kaido, for some reason, anyway, Duke Inarashi and Nico Viper had a falling out. As soon as they met, they would fight for 300 rounds. After returning to the furry principality, neither of them was convinced by the other, but for the sake of the principality, they finally decided each took a step back and compromised with each other. At this point, the furry principality was under the management of Duke Inarashi during the day, and the cat viper was under the management at night. It was daytime, so the musketeers took over the defense force of the furry principality. Eniro and Luobindu had no intention of speaking. Lucci glanced at the two guys and said, dissatisfied, you two are pretending again, shall I play the role of the younger brother? But complaining is a complaint, and Lucci didn't delay things. He responded directly and loudly, we are cotters of the Warhammer pirates. We are here to do business. I hope it will be convenient for you. Sicilian, who was originally very wary, suddenly changed his expression after hearing the words Warhammer pirates. He had never followed Duke Inarashi and Nico Viper to Wano country and met Kojiki Odin. But after all, he was Duke Inarashi's confidant, and he had heard Duke Inarashi mention these things. Although, at that time, Kaido and Orgrim had not become any kind of in-law relationship. But before Kojiki Odin's death, Orgrim Grim had already taken Stussy to Wano country and reached an alliance agreement. So Duke Inarashi naturally believed that Orgrim and Kaido were in the same group. Later, Kojiki Odin died, but Duke Inarashi can still receive a lot of news about the New World, especially newspapers and the like. There, he also learned that Kaido's daughter would marry Orgrim's son, and the two parties would become a family. This hatred naturally belongs to Orgrim. Therefore, the furry principality is very hostile to the beast pirates and Warhammer pirates at this time. You damn pirates are not welcome in the furry principality, go back. Sicilian cursed with an angry look on his face. Lucci was stunned for a moment. I am talking to you so loud and angry, why are you giving me such a bad look? Do you think I am easy to bully? Bastard, brother Enelu, these guys seem to be very hostile to us. Do you still want to talk nonsense to them? Lucci bared his fangs slightly and asked with some annoyance. Robin then spoke at the right time and said, if you think about it, the Fur tribe is a very powerful race and one of the leading fighting tribes, even for children. All have good combat effectiveness, you should think carefully about this. Although Enel looks easy to talk to, he is a pirate after all. After following Orgrim for so many years, he has an evil feeling in his bones. As soon as Robin finished speaking, Enel's hair was he brought out a flash of lightning, smiled evilly and said, this is exactly what I want. In this case, it is useless to talk more, let us use the pirate method to solve this problem. As soon as Enelu said this, Lucci, who had already prepared for the battle, suddenly exerted force on his feet, and his figure was like a cannonball, directly blasting towards Sicilian on the city wall. Since Sicilian knew these three people after becoming a cotter of the Warhammer pirates, he never relaxed at all, and also used internal liaison to notify Duke Inarashi. At this time, Lucci suddenly attacked, and his reaction speed was not bad either. He grabbed his waist, he drew out his saber and slashed out at Lucci's swift figure with one strike. Die, Sicilian shouted loudly. A flash of light flashed in Lucci's eyes. He was in the air and stepped on the void under his feet. It was the moon step. With the power of the moon step, he spun around in the air and kicked like a long whip. He threw it out in the same way, with arm domineering covering his legs, and kicked Sicilian's saber. Sicilian's arm trembled, and the powerful kick made him almost throw away the knife in his hand. However, before he could after reacting, the power from the blade dissipated in an instant. The next moment, Lucci's tail swung behind him was already like a chain, directly wrapped around Sicilian's arm. Trash fish, Lucci sneered. With one movement of his tail, he pulled his figure in the air directly and pressed it in front of Sicilian. A look of panic flashed in Sicilian's eyes, and he moved slowly in his hand. He retracted his saber and without saying a word, he raised his hand and slashed Lucci's chest with the knife. Iron nugget black gold, Lucci shouted. The arm domineering energy and the power of the iron burst out at the same time. Sicilian slashed Lucci's shoulder with a knife, but it had no effect at all. The place where the blade hit even made a clanging sound of metal. Impossible, Sicilian exclaimed. But what he said after saying that, Lucci had already made further moves. Leopard bites, Lucci shouted violently. It's not like Rangar, who likes to tear enemies raw with his mouth, saying it was a leopard bite, but in fact, Lucci grabbed Sicilian's neck with one claw. Then the tiger's mouth opened a lock, like a leopard's bite, grabbed Sicilian's neck and lifted him up. Sicilian struggled to get rid of Lucci's control, but his strength was simply not comparable to Lucci's. And Lucci didn't stop. He first mentioned Sicilian, and then a ferocious evil smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. In the next moment, his arm suddenly exerted force, pinched Sicilian's neck directly, and moved towards the city wall. On the ground, it was rammed down. The powerful force burst out instantly, and Sicilian was smashed into the huge stones of the city wall by Lucci, and the stones directly shattered. Sicilian's eyes also went dark, and he felt as if his throat was broken. He spit out a mouthful of blood, immediately lost the power to resist, fainted, and passed out. Sure enough, it's a trash fish, Lucci said with great disdain. Then he released his grip on Sicilian's neck, straightened up, and shook his arm, as if trying to get rid of the blood on his palm. This series of battles was very fast. From the beginning to the end, Sicilian only made 2 strikes. The first strike was the first strike, but the second strike was useless. He was instantly knocked down by Lucci. Therefore, the surrounding guards could not respond. Come here, your captain has been killed. Just when Lucci wanted to look back confidently and give Enel and Robin a bad blow, a strong wind struck, this time with a powerful momentum. There was no time to see what was going on. Lucci instinctively raised his arm, using the power of his armed collar and iron block at the same time. The next moment, a powerful kick hit Lucci's arm directly. Even with the defensive support of iron blocks and arm domineering, Lucci still felt a pain coming from his arm. The opponent's angry blow was obviously not something that Lucci could completely withstand if he quickly returned to defense. Unable to grasp the ground of the city wall under his feet, the powerful kicking force directly kicked Lucci away. His figure was like a cannonball as he returned from the city wall. Boom! A muffled sound. After Lucci landed, there was a burst of smoke and dust on the elephant owner's back. When the smoke dispersed, the figures of Lucci, Enelu, and Robin appeared again. Lucci did not suffer any serious injuries, but his arms were slightly sore and swollen. For an animal-type ability user, this was nothing. He moved his arms a little, looked at the dog on the city wall, frowned and said, "This guy is a bit powerful. With strong strength and the appearance of a dog, he must be the famous Duke Inuarashi of the Fuzzy Principality, right? It is said that they were on Whitebeard's ship back then. I don't know if it's true or false," Enilu said softly, said by mouth. Listening to Orgrim, it seems like this. Robin gave an affirmative reply. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 542. Unlike Sicilian, Duke Inuarashi's cognitive level is obviously higher. He recognized 2 of the trio at a glance. One of them is Thunder and Arrow, which is currently in the limelight in the New World. Not long ago, there was news about him in the newspapers, saying that he defeated Foil Bista of the Whitebeard pirates. The bounty was also increased to 590 million belly. Clearly a strong enemy. The other one seemed to be an animal-type ability user. He was dressed like a leopard man and was obviously Rob Lucci. Compared with Enelu, Lucci's reputation is not very prominent, and he has not done anything big. As for the bounty, it's not that dazzling in the New World, it's only 250 million belly. But Duke Inuarashi still didn't dare to underestimate this guy. From the time Sicilian sent him the message until now, there wasn't much time at all. His speed was already fast enough, but when he arrived, Sicilian was still defeated by the leopard. The speed is so fast, I'm afraid Sicilian has no room to fight back, right? This is enough to prove Lucci's strength. In addition, his angry blow just now can be regarded as very powerful, but the leopard Lucci did not seem to be seriously harmed. I have to say, this guy's defense is really tough. As for the woman in the trio, Duke Inarashi really couldn't recognize her. Although Nico Robin has been with the Warhammer Pirates, he has been with Orgrim for many years. But she has rarely left Avalon. Moreover, she is not a combatant. She spends most of her time doing academic and historical research. There is almost no news about her on the sea. Even if someone occasionally witnessed something, they would at most regard her as a vase, a concubine beside Orgrim. No one cared about her at all. So until now, Robin has no reputation at all, and has never been rewarded at all. A truly transparent person. Therefore, Duke Inarashi could not recognize who this young and beautiful-looking woman was. But it can be seen from the atmosphere that there seems to be no sense of status gap between her and that Enel and Rob Lucci. So, maybe she will be one of the hidden powers of the Warhammer Pirates? This is also normal. Many big forces have more or less power that is not obvious. Putting the thoughts in his mind away, Duke Inuarashi waved his hand and asked the guards to send Sicilian to treatment quickly. At the same time, he looked at Eniro and others and asked every one of the Warhammer Pirates, "My shaggy principality, and you have never socialized, so why are you here with us?" Enilu is not an easy person to get along with, and the same goes for Lucci, and now there is a mysterious woman here. Even though Duke Inarashi has already classified them as enemies in his heart. But after all, it was just a feud, and there was no direct conflict. So at this moment, he hoped not to do anything, just send these people away and be done with it. If there were any small demands, he felt that he could give in. After all, the name of the Warhammer Pirates is too big, and even Inuarashi can't cover it up. This time, it seems that the new generation of the Warhammer Pirates are coming, right? If those top veterans of the Warhammer Pirates, such as Ben Beckman, Joricole Myhawk, Douglas Barrett, etc., with these people coming, the history of the Furry Principality is likely to come to an end. Listening to Duke Inuarashi's inquiry, Lucci looked at Enel and made it clear that he didn't want to talk about being his little brother. Enelu saw this and looked at Robin. Robin smiled, shook his head and said, "For the sake of you two being the main force later." After finishing speaking, Robin looked at Duke Inuarashi and said, "Excuse me for visiting. We came to the Furry Principality this time not to carry out plunder or other actions, but to look for something. If Mr. Duke can hand over this thing to us, we will leave here immediately, never stay, and will not bring any harm to the Furry Principality." Duke Inarashi had a slightly surprised look in his eyes. If he was just looking for something, it doesn't seem like it's not negotiable. After thinking for a while, Duke Inarashi asked, "I wonder what the three of you are looking for." 800 years ago, a blank 100-year history was recorded, and the historical text of the road sign with the coordinates of Raf drew. Robin didn't make any detours and said directly. Duke Inarashi's face changed when he heard this, and there was a look of surprise in his eyes. Because the historical text of the road sign has been hidden in the Hairy Principality for 800 years. During this period, except for the people of the Kojiki family, and except for the Roger pirates who were personally led by Lord Odin, no one knew such secret information. How did the Warhammer pirates learn about it? If it were ordinary gold and silver treasures, or treasure maps and other messy things, Duke Inuarashi might just swallow his anger and compromise for the sake of the Shaggy Principality. But the road sign historical text can't do it. This is something belonging to the Kojiki family, and they want to protect it. Things. As retainers of the Kojiki family, they have no right to decide the ownership of their master's things. Therefore, Duke Inarashi quickly hid his expression and said in a deep voice the text of the history of the road sign. I have heard of that thing, but unfortunately, I am afraid that the three of you are in the wrong place. Our furry principality has always been isolated from the world, does not participate in matters on the sea, and has no knowledge of road signs and historical texts. But he didn't wait for Duke Inarashi to finish speaking. Robin smiled and said, according to records, 800 years ago, the Kojiki family, a famous stonemason family in Wano, was ordered to create the historical text. There were about 30 pieces scattered around the world, among which, 4 of them are crucial, because they record the secret coordinates pointing to Rafdrug. Now, among the 4 historical texts of road signs, 2 are in the hands of our Warhammer pirates and the Beast pirates respectively, and the remaining 2, the whereabouts of the piece are unknown. After many years of research and investigation, I finally found some clues in ancient books and deduced that as early as 800 years ago, the fur tribe of your furry principality had been deeply involved with the Guanjiao tribe. And friendship, and according to the previous generation of Pirate King Gordy judging from Roger's whereabouts, he was finally able to find the island of Rafdrua, and it was indispensable for Kojiki Odin's help. After deducing many things that happened during this period, you fur tribe were involved in them. Kojiki Odin has been martyred. In the country of Wano, Kaido searched extensively in the country, but could not find the historical text of the road sign, then. Having said this, Robin smiled and said nothing more. But the meaning inside is already obvious. There is no country in Wano. The Kojiki family has been killed for hundreds of years. Outside of Wano, the people Kojiki Odin trusts the most are fur tribes. The historical text of the road sign, where is it if it is not here? Hearing Robin mention Kojiki Odin's name, Duke Inarashi's eyes filled with hatred and anger. But he finally suppressed his anger and said in a deep voice, you are right, we do have a close relationship with Lord Odin, but the things you said about the history of the road signs are just speculation. We don't have such a thing. Listening to Duke Inarashi's response, Robin shook his head helplessly and said, maybe what you said is true, and my guess is wrong, but in any case, it is impossible not to conduct an actual investigation because of your denial. If possible, we do not want to have any conflicts or contradictions with you. I hope you can cooperate with me in the investigation and find the roadmap and historical text. If there is none in the end, you will be compensated to a certain extent. So you want me to let you notorious pirates into my country just by saying a few words? Duke Inarashi said coldly. A notorious pirate? Robin smiled again, and then said, back then, wasn't Kojiki Odin also a pirate? Moreover, if you want to be notorious, I am afraid that only the 2 people around me can be considered pirates. As for me, firstly, I have not been rewarded, and secondly, I have not engaged in any pirate behavior, so I shouldn't be considered a pirate, right? What's that? Duke Inarashi felt that this unknown woman had sharp teeth and a sharp mouth. Scholar, if you can't accept pirates in your heart, you can think of this as an investigation of archaeological knowledge. Robin thought for a while and said very seriously. Duke Inarashi always felt that although this woman was very serious, she seemed to be playing tricks on him. Scholar. When did your Warhammer pirates deserve to have a scholar? Don't you have any idea how O'Hara was destroyed? Then what was the name of Kazgarot Orgrim before he became the pirate emperor? I don't need to repeat it, right? It's useless to say more. No matter what the reason is, I can't agree. You 3, please go back. Duke Inarashi said in a deep voice. In other words, we cannot reach a consensus on this peaceful way of communication, Robin shrugged helplessly. She tried her best. Although he has joined the Warhammer pirates for many years, Robin has never really done anything like a pirate. But after all, he has been hanging out in the pirate den for so many years. Robin is not a virgin bitch. On the contrary, she was more or less influenced by Orgrim and others. In essence, she is somewhat evil. The conversation just now was her last moment of patience. This visit to the furry principality seems to be bound to be her first pirate activity. Duke Inuarashi couldn't help tightening the saber on his waist after hearing Robin's words. Sure enough, the next second, Robin said then, "It seems we have to use the pirate method to reach a consensus." As soon as Robin finished speaking, Lucci still lost his temper. He was already a little unhappy after being kicked by that old dog just now. "Why don't you hurry up and get back the place now?" With a sudden force under his feet, Lucci's wild figure rushed directly towards the city wall, raising his legs in the air and kicking out. "Langiao Asuka!" Lucci shouted in a low voice. Duke Inuarashi's eyes flashed, and the saber hung on his waist was unsheathed. He slashed out two knives from the air, directly cutting Lucci's Arashi feet. But at this time, Lucci it's already coming close. Leopard attack. Lucci had a fierce and wild look in his eyes, and he grabbed Duke Inarashi with one claw. Duke Inarashi's movements were not slow either. The electric light was flowing on his body. He also raised his hand and blocked Lucci's claw attack. At the same time, the innate instinct of the fur tribe, the electric current burst out. But the next moment, Inuarashi looked at Lucci's body, and there was also lightning. "Impossible, you are not a fur tribe, you are a person with abilities," Duke Inarashi said angrily. "Idiot, how can you possibly understand how powerful the Warhammer pirates are?" Lucci smiled evilly, flicked his tail, and hit Duke Inarashi directly on the lower back. Duke Inarashi was still very strong, and he wanted to dodge when he saw the opportunity. But at this moment, a thunder suddenly exploded. Before he could react, Anilu's figure had already flashed out of the electric sparks. He raised his leg and kicked his dog on the head. The powerful thunder and lightning force exploded directly with the kick. "Come on!" Duke Inarashi was kicked out from the city wall by Aniru and Lucky, and smashed into the furry princess. "I had forgotten that you could generate electricity before. If I had known that, I should have asked you to disguise yourself as a fur tribe and infiltrate to obtain information," Anilu smiled. Lucci said unhappily, "You almost blew me up just now. I really have reserved my hand, otherwise I should have used a tomahawk," Enel said as he stretched his hands behind his back. Like Orgrim, he carries a heavy weapon behind his back. One is a warhammer and the other is a tomahawk. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 543. After all, Duke Inuarashi is powerful, he is a fur race, and he is already strong. Although he was kicked by Enilu, he quickly got up from the ground. But as soon as he stood up, he saw a battle axe with electric sparks coming down from top to bottom, and struck him down. The man holding the battle axe is none other than Enel. Duke Inuarashi reacted very quickly, raised the saber in his hand, and his domineering power exploded, blocking the blade of the battle axe in one breath. The powerful force was released, and the ground under his feet could not withstand the pressure and directly shattered, exposing the rough skin of the elephant master. What followed was the power of thunder and lightning that erupted from the battle axe, which was instantly transmitted from Duke Inarashi's blade. However, it seems that the fur tribe is very experienced in dealing with electricity. The fur on Duke Inarashi's body crackled, and electric currents were conducted along his fur, directly piercing into the elephant master's skin. But the elephant owner showed no reaction at all. "Interesting," Anilu said with a slightly excited light in his eyes. "See how much current you can dissipate," Aniru said again. As soon as he finished speaking, the electric light on his body burst out instantly. The dazzling blue light made Duke Inarashi instinctively close his eyes. The next second, the powerful current directly broke through Inuarashi. Duke's fur. The pain caused by the thunder and lightning made Duke Inarashi's face distorted. He no longer dared to withstand Enel's attack like this. He loosened the strength in his hand and skillfully followed the force of the tomahawk's blow, jumped back, and widened the distance between him and Enel. As soon as he stood firm on his feet, Lucci in the form of a leopard man appeared in front of him with a single step. "Finger gun Madara," Lucci shouted. His sharp claws turned into finger guns and pointed directly at Duke Inuarashi's chest. "Armor!" Duke Inuarashi shouted loudly before he had time to dodge. Armed domineering energy instantly covered his body, and Lucci's finger gun was directly pointed on it. The sound of metal collision came from the intersection of the two people. A cruel smile appeared on the corner of Lucci's mouth, and he hooked his finger inward, and the finger gun instantly turned into a fist. "Leopard collapse," Lucci chuckled again. He didn't have the posture to retract his fist before punching out, but just a bang within such a short distance concentrated all his power and burst out. The moment of hedging with armed color and domineering it broke out, and Duke Inuarashi felt a dull pain in his chest. There was a force that penetrated the Haki's defense. He endured the pain, hung an invisible force of Haki from the saber in his hand, and moved toward Lucci. "Cut off his arm with a knife." "Ryusakura Kojiki Ito style," Duke Inuarashi growled. "Not good," a flash of surprise flashed in Lucci's eyes, as he thought in his heart. "Liu Ying?" This is what Wano said. Given the relationship between the Warhammer pirates and the Beast pirates, Lucci naturally knows about it. This thing is the advancement of armed color domineering, it is the second stage state. Both defense and attack power will be greatly enhanced. It is the standard equipment for top players. Duke Inuarashi definitely cannot be a top expert at this time. But he just knows how to use Liu Ying. He was probably taught by the Kojiki family in Wano, right? This is nothing. The embarrassing thing is that Lucci has not mastered the second stage of armed color domineering at this time. Ordinary armed domineering power cannot resist this kind of power. However, Lucci was born with a ruthless nature, and the two of them were too close to each other at this moment, and it was impossible to completely avoid him. With a step of his foot, Lucci directly changed his moves, drew his arms inward, thrust his waist forward, and his shoulders directly hit Duke Inuarashi's chest. The next moment, Duke Inuarashi slashed Lucci's chest with his sword. Even with the blessing of armed domineering and iron blocks, Lucci's chest was still splattered with blood after this blow. But at the same time, Lucci's eyes flashed fiercely, and he put his shoulder on Duke Inarashi's chest. This move is a bit like Sci-fi and Orgrim's close contact technique, and it is very powerful. After hitting him with a sudden blow, Duke Inuarashi was knocked away by Lucci. Lucci was also sent flying by the sword at the same time, rolling several times on the ground. At the same moment, Eniro's figure turned into lightning. He didn't care about Lucci at all. He caught up with Duke Inarashi and struck out with an axe, sparking lightning. Duke Inuarashi was also in a panic. In a hurry, he had to use the lazy donkey roll, a life-saving trick that masters must have, and raised a cloud of dust on the ground to avoid Eniro's fatal axe. "Are you okay?" Lucci, Robin also finished taking care of the guards and other miscellaneous fish at this time. Although the fur tribe is generally very powerful in combat, Robin is not an incompetent scholar. Lucci got up from the ground in some embarrassment, his chest a blood-red color. The incision was so deep that the bones could already be seen. Fortunately, the two of them were close to each other, so the wound was not very large. Enduring the pain, Lucci cursed that old dog can actually use Liu Ying. As soon as he finished speaking, Lucci took a deep breath, and the muscles in his body began to surge. At that time, Orgrim said that he could not leave Avalon because his abilities were not awakened. But that was just a joke after all. Later, after Lucci went to Melview to undergo surgical transformation, he was finally free to go to sea. But because of this, until now, his ability has still not been awakened. But in terms of ability development, it is already very strong. The awakening of animal type ability users has some advantages compared to the abilities of other types. This kid is about to reach that threshold. Although the ability has not been awakened at this time. But Lu Chi had practiced all 6 Navy styles to an extremely profound level. He took a deep breath, and when he spit it out again, the blood flow from the wound had slowly stopped. 6 secrets, return of life, Lu Chi shouted in a low voice. As he finished speaking, he pressed his waist down, put his arms with fists across his waist, and assumed a standard horse stance. Then, he looked at the wound on his chest. Quickly brought them together, and the injury was greatly relieved. It did not heal on its own, it was just a matter of forcibly controlling the wounds to close together. But this was enough. Even if they were not awakened, the animal type ability users were still with extremely strong vitality. Coupled with the secret of life return of the 6 styles, Lu Chi can still maintain his strong fighting power. If the time is long enough, he can even perform superficial self-healing. Looking at the other side, Inuarashi and Eniru are currently fighting fiercely. Eniru is obviously stronger, but Inuarashi is not easy to deal with. Despite the disadvantage, he still maintains a fighting force. He is not beaten by Eniru in one breath. Entering a devastating posture. This time, Lu Chi did not rush forward directly. He moved his body again and continued to lower his body. Soon, his hands were pressed on the ground. It was not that he changed into a real leopard form. Still maintaining the state of the leopard man, but he was indeed on all fours. The sharp claws formed by his hands were clasped down and clasped into the ground, and then Lu Chi's tail suddenly straightened. Mysterious meaning, broken leopard martial body, Lu Chi's throat vibrated slightly, his eyes gradually turned scarlet, and he whispered in a low voice. As his words fell, Lu Chi's originally slightly strong leopard man form changed again. His muscles continued. After the explosion, the aura on his body also became stronger. His body shape seemed to have grown a lot. As Lu Chi, who has practiced the 6 postures to an extremely high level, he has already been able to fully grasp his overall state. He is in the form of the leopard man, he can still display 2 different states. The first state is called the paper-painted martial body. Not only will it not become stronger, but on the contrary, it will also become slimmer. In that state, Lu Chi's speed will increase significantly, and accordingly, his strength will decrease. The second state is the current Zanbao Wushan, which further strengthens his strength and ferocity, but correspondingly, some sensitivity and speed will be reduced. Scarlet eyes kept flowing, and soon, Lu Chi locked onto Duke Inarashi. At the moment when his eyes stopped, Lu Chi exerted force on his limbs, and in the form of leopard man, running close to the ground. This is a technique that Lu Chi practiced in order to make up for the lack of speed in this state. His figure was like a sharp arrow, sticking to the ground, directly piercing the person he was fighting with. Duke Inuarashi, who fought against Enel. Leopard attack, Lu Chi's eyes were scarlet and he shouted loudly. At the same time, he turned from 4 feet to 3 feet. He pushed his left hand on the ground, raised his body upward, turned his claws into fists, and struck Duke Lan with a fierce blow. Hit the waist. Flowing Sakura Dark Warrior. Duke Inuarashi's eyes flashed, and he shouted angrily. At the same time, a powerful armed domineering force burst out from his body, and the flowing cherry blossoms were like armor, covering his whole body in an instant. Then, Eniro's the battle axe was filled with electric light, and struck Duke Inarashi's blade with one strike. Then, Lu Chi punched Duke Inarashi on the waist. Although the 2 powerful blows did not break Ryuing's defense, Inuarashi Duke Lan still couldn't bear the force and was thrown away. Lu Chi's reaction speed was extremely fast. The 3 feet that landed on the ground still exerted force at the same time. His figure bounced up against the ground like a cannonball, catching up with Duke Inuarashi in one breath. Mysterious meaning, 6 King's Spear, Lucci roared angrily. He stretched out his arms instantly and hit Duke Inuarashi on the chest at a very fast speed. Although Liu Ying was resisting, this blow seemed to be very powerful. At the moment Duke Inuarashi seemed to hear the roar of artillery fire. Although the powerful impact failed to penetrate the Ryuzakura armor, the strength penetrated unexpectedly. Duke Inuarashi couldn't help but let out a smile. A trace of blood came. At the same time, Enilu's figure seemed to have appeared in front, and the battle axe in his hand was swung out with powerful thunder. Oops, Duke Inuarashi said angrily in his heart. After being hit by the 6 King's Spear, he couldn't adjust his body shape at all for a moment, and he might not be able to dodge Enilu's prepared axe. If he had to bear it, even if he had the power of Liu Ying to protect him, he would still not be able to defeat someone as strong as Eniru. If you don't say much, you'll be seriously injured. He was originally unable to defeat Enilu and Lucci's team up, but if he was seriously injured again, it would not be much different from death. However, at this moment, Enilu frowned suddenly, and the battle axe that was originally about to be chopped down also changed its direction, and a rung was placed at his side. Sure enough, in the next second, a double-headed trident with a strong aura of armed domineering pierced the axe directly. The powerful force forced Enilu to be pushed back more than 10 meters. At the same time, a fat figure appeared here with an unusually agile posture, and caught Duke Inuarashi, who was flying upside down. "Old dog, you are becoming more and more useless," the figure said with a mocking tone. Duke Inuarashi spat out another mouthful of blood that was in his throat, and then said, "There's no need for you idiot to meddle in your own business." Cat Viper. Yes, this figure is none other than the Cat Viper who rules the furry principality together with Duke Inuarashi. His appearance also brought the battle to a slight pause. Both sides are observing the situation of their opponents. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 544. Looking at the sudden appearance of Viper, Lucci frowned slightly and asked directly, "Who are you?" "Little kid, show some respect to me, I am Zo's King of the Night, Cat Viper," Nico Viper said very irritably. It is different from Duke Inuarashi's aristocratic style. Nico Viper is obviously more like a gangster, or a gangster. He is rude and rude. Listen to Nico Viper. After introducing himself, Lucci's eyes became more ferocious. "The King of the Night? Do you deserve this name?" Lucci said in a very unkind tone. At the same time, Enel also moved his neck a little and said coldly, "In the New World, there is only one King of the Night, and that is our Lord Orgrim, you little cat. Speak without fear of the wind flashing your tongue." "Ha ha ha ha, when I was at sea, that bastard Orgrim didn't even know what he was," Cat Viper mocked unceremoniously. The expressions of Lucci and Enelu became gloomier. Both of them admired and respected Orgrim very much. How could they listen to such words? Although, what Nico Viper said seems to be true. He and Inuarashi both went to sea a long time ago. He suffered a shipwreck and drifted to Wano country, where he was taken in by Kojiki Odin. At that time, Orgrim didn't seem to be very famous. People who like to say this kind of thing are just trash who are immersed in the past and can't extricate themselves. How dare you say this in front of my Mr. Chui? If he doesn't beat the shit out of you, you'll be fine, Lucci said coldly. There is no need for Sir Orgrim. Seeing an idiot like you will stain the eyes of my family. Today, I will let you understand that you can eat randomly, but you can't talk nonsense. Eniru said in a solemn tone. Before, when he fought with Duke Inuarashi, he didn't have much anger. The attack was not particularly ruthless. It was more that he wanted to continue to hone his fighting skills. It's just experience. However, Cat Viper was too arrogant and mocked Orgrim, whom he respected most. This made Enel lose his patience with them. As soon as Enel finished speaking, lightning flashed across his body. Flickering, invisible electric currents quickly flowed through the whole body, gradually covering it into lightning armor. During the Battle of Butter Island, Enel had used this method. But at that time, Enel was not very skilled in it. And at this moment, it is already familiar. Thunder escape armor, mighty thunder god, Enelu raised the battle axe in his hand and shouted in a low voice. Then, his domineering power was fully unleashed, and his aura was rising steadily. In the blink of an eye, he seemed to have become extremely powerful. Duke Inuarashi looked at this scene. Only then did I realize that this guy Enero wasn't serious at all before. At the same time, I also scolded the foul-mouthed cat viper several times in my heart. What the hell, you just made fun of me when you came up. Now you're even more stressed, right? As for why they were scolding for no apparent reason? Although the two of them had some disagreements, Cat Viper did save him just now. The pupils in Cat Viper's eyes shrank slightly, staring at Enelu. But at this moment, Enelu's figure suddenly disappeared. His speed was so fast that even the agile Cat Viper could not trace his traces. All that could be seen was a faint glow of electric light where Enel was just now. However, when masters compete with each other, they don't really all see it with their eyes. Wisdom, color, domineering, instinct, and various other skills are the top priority. Otherwise, how could a blind man like Fujitoro become an admiral? Intuition and knowledge reminded him of Haki at the same time. The double-headed trident in Cat Viper's hand was wrapped with Haki and stabbed into the void beside him. Sure enough, Enel's figure appeared there, but strangely, the double-headed trident failed to actually hit the spot where Enel appeared. It's slightly off by about half a meter. This is the difference in domineering power. Different from Lucci, Lucci is better at armed and domineering, while Enero is more focused on seeing and hearing domineering. Especially his Haki of wisdom and information, which can cooperate with his own thunder fruit, making it even more powerful. Without saying a word, the battle axe with thunder and lightning in his hand struck out with a strike. Cat Viper's eyes flashed, the trident was retracted inward, and the figure jumped back very nimbly, as if it had avoided the blow. But before his feet even touched the ground, he saw Enelu loosen his axe in his hand and his figure disappeared. The next moment, Cat Viper appeared beside him. It was only at this moment that Cat Viper's feet could barely touch the ground. Impossible, so fast, Cat Viper was shocked and said. At the same time, he raised his hand with domineering air, as if he wanted to attack. But Enelu was faster, raised his hand, and directly grabbed the arm of the Cat Viper that was ready to go. There was a cruel smile on the corner of his mouth, his eyes flashed with blue electric light, and he whispered softly, said, "Too slow. Flowing Sakura. 200 million volts divine touch." A powerful electric light burst out, and even if Liu Ying resisted, the fur on the Viper's body was still blown up by the electricity. Holding back the pain that came from his body, Cat Viper turned one of his hands into sharp claws and grabbed Enelu's body. But at the moment when he stretched out his hand, Enelu's figure had disappeared from his sight again. Just for a moment, Enel has already appeared behind him. Finger gun thunder piercing, Enel calmly stretched out a finger and put it on Cat Viper's back. At the same time as the voice fell, a bolt of thunder, with the power of a finger gun, turned into a beam of light, directly piercing the chest and back of Cat Viper. At the same time as the blow fell, Enelu seemed to have anticipated something, without any hesitation, and the figure had disappeared. Sure enough, in the next moment, Cat Viper's tail rolled back, and the attack that originally wanted to catch Enelu failed. He covered the wound that penetrated his chest. No blood flowed out of it. The wound was charred and black, and he was obviously burned to death. Nico Viper was very surprised. Judging from Inu Arashi's state just now, Eniru and Luki should not be particularly strong. Why did he fall completely into a passive position when he fought, and even said that he had almost no power to fight back? Is there such a big gap in strength between himself and Inuarashi? Or maybe they didn't use all their strength just now? But this was not the time to think about these issues. What frightened Cat Viper even more was that this guy Enel seemed to have the ability to foresee the future. In those few moments just now, my reaction speed had reached its limit. However, Enelu was able to dodge all his attacks very calmly. This made Cat Viper think of a possibility, which is the second stage of seeing and hearing domineering, foreseeing the future. It is said that a few years ago, the perfect man of the Big Mom pirates, Charlotte Katakuri, had mastered this power. On the sea, few can rival him. Could it be that the same is true for Enelu? It was too late to say it, but it was too soon. There were thousands of thoughts in my mind. In fact, it was just a short breath. Before Cat Viper could make any move, he saw that Enelu's figure reappeared and did not take action again. Instead, he said with a smile on his lips, "It's not about predicting the future." "What?" Cat Viper instinctively responded with some surprise. "I can hear you wondering. My experience is not about foreseeing the future, and I am not Katakuri," Enelu said softly. Cat Viper's face darkened, and he seemed to have thought of another possibility. Decades ago, the great pirate Beloric Redfield, the Red and Alone, was once as famous as Whitebeard, Roger, and the Golden Lion. That guy's domineering power of knowledge, and knowledge is also extremely powerful, and he is not predicting the future, but listening to people's hearts. You are right, you are listening to people's hearts. As long as I use my full strength, I can hear everything you think within the scope of my sight. Enelu raised his hand and pulled out a bolt of lightning, and said very calmly. Perhaps, Enelu's knowledge color domineering power is not weaker than Katakuri's, but he did not direct the knowledge color domineering power towards to develop in the direction of foreseeing the future. On the contrary, he once again used his Thunder Fruit ability to continuously strengthen the penetrating power of the sight, and finally achieved the achievement of listening to people's hearts. This foreseeing the future and listening to people's hearts, there is actually no need to distinguish which one is strong and which one is weak. It mainly depends on how the master uses it. Cat Viper no longer doubted it at this time, because he didn't say a word at all, but Enel, it was as if I could hear the doubts in his heart and answered his doubts. Coupled with the feeling that the previous offensives had been predicted in advance, there is no doubt that this is the power of listening to people's hearts. But this kind of Cat Viper has never encountered this power before, let alone how far he can hear. Human thoughts are the most difficult to control. You can achieve not doing, but it is difficult for you to not want to. Especially in battle, thinking about strategies to deal with the enemy is almost an instinctive behavior, but here in Enelu, the more you think about it, the more uncomfortable it becomes. Cat Viper wants to get rid of this kind of thinking, but just when he was about to think about how to get rid of it, Enelu spoke again. "You don't have to think about it, I won't give you so much time anymore." Cat Viper was shocked and immediately understood that he was thinking again without knowing it. And this kind of thinking was already one step behind. With such a difficult and terrifying power, he completely at a loss. His eyes slipped slightly and he looked at Duke Inuarashi, who was fighting with Lucci in the distance. Although Inuarashi seemed to have some upper hand, Lucci had no obvious disadvantage. Counting on the dogland helps him. Don't think that our Lucci is so weak. Do you really think that this is his full strength? He was just testing. Even if he couldn't win, he wouldn't lose so quickly. Enelu once again revealed what Cat Viper was thinking. But this time, he stopped talking nonsense. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure turned into lightning and disappeared again. Cat Viper's heart tightened, and she moved the double-headed trident in her hand, as if she wanted to capture Enelu's figure. But at this moment, a flash of surprise flashed in his eyes. When he looked up, he saw that Enel was floating in the air. "It's not a close-quarters fight like the one just now?" Suddenly, Cat Viper realized again, Enelu is so dirty. From his battle axe and the series of close combat just now, it seems that he is misleading his opponent. So much so that Cat Viper has forgotten that the natural system has always used powerful energy to achieve crushing victory. No one of them really regards close combat as their most important skill. But at this time, it seemed a little too late for him to understand this. God's wrath and thunder, Eniru pointed his hand in the air. For a moment, the sky was pierced by thunder, and the roar of angry thunder resounded throughout the entire Zou Island. Luiing Black Samurai's armor, Cat Viper couldn't dodge the power of this swift thunder. He felt cruel in his heart, and the powerful domineering energy directly enveloped his whole body. Then, the dazzling thunder light completely covered him. At the same time, all the time the elephant owner, who had not made any movement, also let out a roar. Big guys, the updated rhythm is back, shamelessly, please give me monthly tickets and flowers. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 545. The roar of the elephant master resounded through the sky, seeming to suppress the roar of thunder. Perhaps, this is the elephant owner feeling pain after a long absence. When the dazzling lightning dissipated, only the area where the lightning struck emitted a smell of burnt cooked meat. In that area, the rough and thick skin of the elephant master was cooked a little. However, for the elephant owner, this feeling should be the same as the feeling of accidentally burning himself with a lighter and getting a blister, right? It hurts, but actually, it's nothing serious. In the charred center, the miserable figure of the Cat Viper lay there. A large area of his fur was charred black, and he would twitch from time to time. Occasionally, an arc of electricity would pass through the charred fur. Cough, Cat Viper's thoughts returned from the void, and he couldn't help opening his mouth and coughing lightly, and a wisp of black smoke came out of his mouth. Damn old cat, Duke Inarashi called out with a look of worry and panic in his eyes. Although he was at odds with Nico Viper, the two had been at odds for many years, and they looked like they were fighting to the death when they met. But in fact, there was no real hatred. It's just that the conflicts of the past made the two proud people unwilling to reconcile first. In their hearts, they still have the companionship of the past. Especially at this time, it is related to the major interests and safety of the Mao Duchy. Duke Inuarashi can no longer, no matter what, I don't want to see Nico Viper defeated here. After calling out, Duke Inarashi seemed to want to go to support. But Lucci was not that easy to talk. He already looked like he had red eyes, and his throat wild growls came out from time to time, constantly pestering Duke Inarashi. Duke Inarashi couldn't take down Lucci for a while, and was dragged by him, unable to support Nico Viper. At the same time, Eniru the figure also slowly condensed out of the electric light scattered on the ground. Looking at the Cat Viper who fell on the ground, seriously injured, struggling to get up, but failed several times. Enelu also felt the same in his heart. Somewhat emotional. After all, I have become a lot stronger. So strong that even masters like Cat Viper are no longer my strong rivals. Looking forward, there are people on the sea who can be his rival on an arrow. There are not many. The next step is to target the top masters. For example, Charlotte Lingling, Navy Marshal Sengoku, the three generals, etc. However, although they won the battle neatly. But Enel didn't really swell. In other words, Enel never swelled after being tricked by Mariah and Garp. He put away his excitement, Enel's expression quickly returned to calm. He knew that there was still a big gap between first-class masters and top-notch masters. There were many first-class masters like him in the sea, such as Doflamingo. Class. But there are very few people who can truly reach the top level of masters. He still has a long way to go. At this time, it is not the time to think about these issues. Look at the Cat Viper, there was a hint of ruthlessness in Enel's eyes. After he was brought down from the Sky Island by Orgrim, his character and temper changed a lot from those in the original story. The original Enel, he is a cruel, despicable, unruly, blind, and arrogant guy who tries to claim to be a god. His character is even more difficult to describe. But he has not experienced so much suffering and hatred. After being raised by Orgrim with good clothes and good food. Enilu's character is actually relatively mild compared to most pirates. He rarely gets really angry. At least Lucci and Robin have known him for so many years, and they have never seen Eniru. Lu always has a good temper when he gets angry with anyone. But this does not mean that Enel is not angry. In his opinion, Orgrim is the one who gave him a new life. He will be on Sky Island Bika. The unlucky kid who was half-clothed and hungry, who might starve to death on the roadside at any time, was brought into the new world. As Mihawk said, Orgrim is the most anticipated and promising new generation. The member is Enelu. Enelu can naturally feel this importance. Orgrim gave him a new life and gave him everything he needed. For him, Orgrim was the first person in his life. Among them, the most respected and awe-inspiring person. You can humiliate me, Enelu, say bad things about me, scold me, it doesn't matter. As long as I'm in a good mood, I can just laugh it off. However, no one can speak ill of Lord Orgrim in front of me, Enelu, without being punished. Cat Viper's bad mouth, in Enelu's view, is his original sin, which is unforgivable. With an evil look in his eyes, Enelu walks slowly towards Cat Viper. There is no fear in Cat Viper's eyes. He is not afraid of anything like death, and he will not bow his head to the enemy. I just feel very sorry that I am so bad, it is his failure to protect the people and the country. He struggled to stand up, but the powerful current had already severely injured him. The paralysis in his body had not subsided until now. His movements were not smooth at all. The electric light flashed in his hand, and the electromagnetic power spread out. The tomahawk that fell in the distance felt the call of its master. Under the influence of electromagnetic force, it flew up out of thin air, dragging a blue-white electric light, and landed quickly and accurately in Enelu's hands. The King of the Night? What a ridiculous character. Do you deserve to be called the King of the Night? Enelu said to Cat Viper with a sarcastic smile on his face. Cat Viper endured the huge pain in his body, grinned with an arrogant smile, and looked at Enelu. Want to humiliate me? I don't care about this, if you want to kill, just kill, don't talk so much nonsense. Kill you, Enelu chuckled, with a bit of disdain in his tone, and continued, don't think too beautifully, killing you is meaningless. I should let you live in pain, and then spend the next days and nights in the midst of it, regret it, regret the arrogance you said today, and immerse yourself in the boundless pain. Don't you have any dignity of the strong? Cat Viper cursed angrily. Dignity? Don't forget, I am an evil pirate. At the same time, for me, Lord Orgrim is my dignity. Even if you offend my dignity, I don't have to leave any bottom line for you, Enelu said coldly. As he finished speaking, he raised the battle axe with the power of thunder in his hand. Repent for your words that offended Lord Orgrim, you bastard, Enelu shouted angrily. The next moment, the battle axe in his hand suddenly fell, and an axe directly hit the arm of Cat Viper. Bloodlight cut through the air, and Cat Viper was in severe pain. He couldn't help but wailed. One of his arms was cut off from the shoulder by Enel's axe. This seemed to be not the end. Scarlet blood sprayed on Enel's face, making him the indifferent expression looked a bit ferocious. He pulled up the tomahawk again, and Enelu had a sinister smile on his lips. He was still merciless, and he struck the axe again towards Cat Viper. Cat Viper wailed in pain again. Enelu's axe cut off one of his legs directly from the knee down. The electric current passed through the axe blade with high temperature, evaporating the blood stained on it. Clean. Enero put the battle axe in his hand behind his back again, and then the power of thunder and lightning flashed on his body again. 2 thunderbolts fell from the sky, directly destroying the severed limb he had just chopped off, leaving no possibility of continuing. Got it? I will accept your left leg and arm. From now on, live in this attitude, repent, and regret your disrespect for the rest of your life, Enelu said softly. Hateful, Cat Viper's eyes flashed with hatred, staring at Enelu, as if she wanted to kill him with her eyes. It's this kind of look. The stronger the hatred in your eyes, the more it highlights your own incompetence, which will make you more painful. I like this look very much, Enelu said with an evil smile. Everyone's style of doing things is different. Orgrim once taught Enelu that to cut the weeds, you have to get rid of the roots. If you kill a whole family, you can't let a dog go. Nero had mostly done this before. But this time, he wanted to make an exception and leave Cat Viper's mean life. As for whether this guy would take revenge or something, Nero didn't care at all. I'm not afraid of you even if your limbs are intact. What's more, you're missing an arm and a leg. If you can make a comeback, it will prove that I, Enelu, am nothing more than that. This choice cannot be called a good or bad choice. Maybe it seems a bit stupid, but it is also the self-confidence of a strong person. Not to mention, there are really many strong people with such confidence in the sea. Orgrim seems to have done this kind of thing. Kaido, Whitebeard, people like him often do such seemingly stupid things. Perhaps, this is also a psychological change of stepping onto the ladder of the strong. Not afraid of the future, not afraid of challenges and revenge, and even have some expectations in the heart. Asshole, you, Cat Viper seemed to want to say something else. But Enelu no longer intends to listen to the loser's barking. There was a flash of lightning in his hand, and a lightning strike hit the Viper on the head, electrocuting it and causing it to faint. At the same time, Robin slowly walked over. She glanced at the miserable condition of Viper, shrugged casually, curled her lips, and said, "Such cruel methods are not your style." This is true. Although Enelu has fought a lot, his methods are indeed not too cruel. Enelu smiled when he heard this and said, "Whether I am cruel or not depends on my mood. I am a pirate. Don't really think of me as a good person." Robin didn't want to meddle in other people's business. Meaning, there are many more cruel people in the Warhammer Pirates than Enero. Orgrim is the obvious one. Rengar is even more cruel and has even eaten people. But facing the enemy and facing one's own people are two completely different states. This is enough, isn't it? Aren't you going to help Lucci? Robin looked at Lucci, who was fighting Duke Inarashi in the distance, and asked. Enero waved his hand and said, "Don't worry about him. Lucci is not an idiot. If he can't beat him, he won't. If you really want to save face, give him some more time." Robin looked at Enelu with some emotion, and finally said with a smile, "You have really changed a lot." "What's the meaning?" Enelu asked with some confusion. "Compared with you before, you are now much more mature and less youthful than you were back then. It seems that you have become a character who can stand alone." "Orgrim will be very pleased, right?" Robin said with a smile. After hearing this, Enel couldn't help laughing, and said, But how could a man who aspired to become Lord Orgrim's right-hand man stand still? This is not enough. I am still unable to solve Lord Orgrim's problems. I have to become stronger, more mature, and more reliable." Speaking of this, Enel paused for a moment, and then said with some expectation, "Sooner or later, I will let my companions in the Warhammer Pirates be able to trust their backs and hand them over under any circumstances. Protect me." Looking at this little friend who was still a little shy and young in the past, Robin also laughed and encouraged, "There will be such a day, and I think that this day will not be too far away." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 546. Is this the historical text of the road sign? It seems to be no different from the piece on the top floor of the Great Library of Avalon. Lucci looked at the red historical text in front of him, smacked his lips and said. At this time, Lucci looked very embarrassed. His body was covered with bandages. From the bandages, some bright red blood stains could be faintly seen. These Robin bandaged him not long ago. Although he looked very embarrassed, it did not affect Lucci's actions, it was just a little painful. In the end, Lucci still failed to defeat Duke Inuarashi and was always at a disadvantage. State. However, there is not a big gap in strength, just a feeling of stalemate. They came here this time to find the historical text of the road sign, so Lucci did not insist on being proud. After discovering that he could not win Duke Inarashi for a long time, after that, he still asked his good brother, Eniru, for help. Eniru did not hold any airs and took action without hesitation. In a serious state, he teamed up with Lucci to fight against Duke Inuarashi, and they fought repeatedly divide by two, and kill this guy. Duke Inuarashi has always maintained his noble manner, and there is no disrespect to Orgrim in his words. Therefore, whether it is Lucci or Ani, regardless of the road, they didn't have much hostility towards him. So they didn't turn him into a miserable state like a cat and a viper. They just beat him severely until he was seriously injured and fell into a coma, then left him alone. After that, once again, the knights and musketeers who came to support were wiped out, and dozens of fur tribe members were strangled with very harsh methods, suppressing the furry principality's will to resist. Afterwards, after some searching, they found the historical text of the road sign in the forest of Wales. In fact, this thing is secretive, but if you really want to find it, it is very simple. The Forest of Wales is a forbidden area of the furry principality. After learning this information, the three of them focused, so we searched this place. After all, it is a forbidden area. Does this name sound like it has a secret? Sure enough, the historical text of the red road sign is here. After listening to Lucci's words, Robin smiled and said, in your eyes, maybe there is no difference, but in my eyes, the information recorded in these words is completely different. Try it to see whether it is true or false. Right. As soon as Robin finished speaking, Lucci took 2 steps away from the historical text of the road sign. Then, Enelu stood up and swung the battle axe he was carrying on his back, with electric sparks, and struck the historical text of the road sign with all his strength. The powerful counter-shock force made Enelu's arms numb, and he couldn't help but take 2 steps back. Looking at the historical text of this road sign, there is no movement at all. It seems that Enel's full blow just now is nothing to it. Not even a scratch mark was left. However, Robin and Lucci had a smile on their faces. It seems to be true, Lucci said with some excitement. As for the historical text, the authenticity of this thing is actually easy to verify. After all, this thing is invulnerable to water, fire, and invulnerable to swords and guns. It is said to be indestructible. Only the Guanjia family uses special means and technology. It can leave traces on it. Almost all other attacks can't be dealt with by it. Therefore, the simplest and crudest way to judge whether this thing is real or fake is to give it a full blow. If there is no reaction, it is real goods. If it is damaged, it must be a fake. What does it say? Lucci looked at Robin and asked. Robin's eyes stopped at the dense ancient text, and then he spoke softly. It records a quarter of the coordinates of Lafdru, and then some historical information, hidden the truth in time, free will be conveyed to future generations of successors, and the world belongs to. Robin hadn't even finished what he said. Lucci, who looked like a curious baby just now, waved his hands with a headache after hearing these words, and said, stop reading, it's too boring, it's really boring. Do you know why you historians study these things? Do you need to care so much about those things in the past? Didn't Master Chui say that people should look forward? As soon as he finished speaking, Enelu reached out and knocking Lucci's head. He said with a smile, you may not understand, but you can't disrespect, Lucci. However, Robin did not pay attention to Lucci's words. After all, they have been friends for many years, and she also knew that Lucci there was no malice in Chi's words, he was just complaining. It is true that people should look forward, but history will reflect the mistakes we have made in the past. It will become a light that guides the future and convey our voice to us. What we historians have to do is to protect this. The sound can be conveyed to future generations and alert the world, Robin said softly. After she finished speaking, she didn't explain anything else. Anyway, no matter how much she said, Lucci, a little grumpy man, couldn't understand it. Maybe these words were just for herself, right? I feel like I can't do research at ease here. Let's take the things back to Avalon first and give Orgrim a surprise. Robin put away his thoughts and smiled again. You've come here, you can't just take this thing away, right? This is not our pirate style. The wealth of the furry principality has already opened its door to us. Enelu smiled evilly and said. That's right, gold and treasure, Lucci shouted excitedly. When dealing with enemies, it is natural to loot them all, Enel said with some expectation. Enemy, you just spared the life of that guy Inuarashi, is that appropriate? Robin asked a little sinisterly. It's not a big deal. If we can defeat him once, we can defeat him a second time. Back then, didn't Lord Orgrim also spare the life of the current Admiral Kuzan? In Alabasta, Enelu said with a smile. That's right, no matter what kind of naval admiral that Kuzan guy has become, but so far, he still hasn't found his place again. Every time he meets Mr. Hammer, he ends up being defeated. This is the strong man. So calm, you, a literary person, don't understand, Lucci also said with a confident attitude. It was as if he was not the one who couldn't defeat Duke Inuarashi just now. So, you are learning Orgrim? Robin said a little strangely. Is this weird? Learn from the people you admire and respect the most, Enelu said without hesitation. Orgrim also said that you should be merciless, and you must eradicate the roots, Robin pouted. But this was Enelu and Lucci's choice. She just complained about it and had no intention of changing it. Soon, the three of them plundered many of the riches of the furry principality. Most of them are gold or something, and Enelu is not polite. The power of the thunder fruit is once again displayed. After smelting the gold, using the power of thunder and lightning to control it, the group of people wrapped up the historical text of the road sign, and then left the elephant owners back without any further stop. As for the rest of the wealth, Lucci and Robin took whatever they could take away with them. What they couldn't take away, they didn't covet. This kind of behavior is just their normal behavior as pirates. But in the final analysis, the Warhammer Pirates system has long passed the stage of making a living through robbery, the most primitive form. They, the Avalon clan, are big chaebol who make a lot of money every day, so their level is different. New World Cake Island. In Prospero's candy house. At this time, Charlotte Lingling's eldest son was sitting on a chair, thinking about something. On the table beside him, there was a cup of hot black tea and some documents. Few people know that 3 days later, under the arrangement of Katakuri, the King Shichibukai red-haired Shanks will secretly enter Cake Island and meet Charlotte Lingling. At this time, Prospero felt a little strange. Obviously this matter seemed reasonable, but for some reason, he always felt that something was wrong. After thinking about it, Prospero finally figured something out. That's my very capable brother, something's wrong. Katakuri, he shouldn't have such a temper. It is true that he and his mother had a big rift, and her mother was indeed repairing this rift, but Katakuri, you shouldn't be someone who returns to his original state so casually. This younger brother of mine must be planning something. Pero had this speculation in his mind, and judging from his position, he should have reported this speculation to Charlotte Lingling. But now, Pero did not do this. But thinking. Of course, he also felt that he was talking nonsense and had no solid evidence. If he told his mother this, he probably wouldn't be able to get away with it, right? Not long ago, he was present at the secret meeting of the Big Mom Pirates. For the first time, I really turned the corner in my mind and felt the change in my mother, Charlotte Lingling. I have to say that he is indeed much slower than Katakuri. Katakuri had already felt this change many years ago, but he only discovered it now. Pero, who discovered this change, also had some thoughts in his mind that he shouldn't have. Is he loyal to Charlotte Lingling? Maybe it's loyalty. But if we really talk about feelings, there are actually no feelings at all. After all, Charlotte Lingling is really not a thing. Asking himself, Pero suddenly realized that perhaps he had always been loyal to his role as the eldest son, right? Just because he is the eldest son, he must be loyal and set an example for his younger brothers and sisters. For so many years, Pero, seemed to have been living for this identity. Is this really what I want? Before discovering the change in Charlotte Lingling, Pero would not have thought about this kind of problem, or even dared to think about it. But now, he couldn't help but think. What kind of life do you want to live? There was no need to think about the answer day and night. As soon as the idea came to him, Pero had already found the answer. He wants to win against Katakuri's younger brother once. That's all. Obviously, I am the elder brother, but why are you better than me in every aspect? Jealousy. Yes, jealousy. Hatred. No, there is no hatred. I just wanted to win once and prove to Katakuri that I was not the one he needed to protect. On the contrary, he, the older brother, should be the one to protect the younger brothers and sisters behind him. Ah, so that's it, all this time, what I wanted turned out to be this, brother, big brother, I just want to be a good big brother, Pero murmured softly. He shook his head in a funny way. He felt that he was very naive. He was so old and still fighting for such a ridiculous concept. But, this is me, Katakuri Pero murmured again, picked up the hot tea on the table and took a sip. No matter what, he wanted to prove that he was better than Katakuri. Charlotte Pero look, you have to win once. Once is enough. Although I don't know what you are going to do, maybe I should make my own arrangements, brother, Pero whispered softly. After finishing speaking, he picked up the documents on the table. Turning over a page, you can see that it also contains information about the king's Shichibukai. On the homepage, it's this guy Jinbei. However, Pero didn't stop at Jinbei's photo at all. Instead, he continued to turn a few pages back, past a loser like Moonlight Moria, and finally stopped at the photo of Sand Crocodile. Brother, you chose red hair, so who should I choose? Pero shook his head with some emotion and said to himself. Crocodile, looking at this photo, Pero's mind went back many years ago. At that time, rookies represented by Orgrim began to rise on the sea. Among them, there is also a guy who is highly regarded by the world, it is Sand Crocodile. He was once a hero who was no less popular than Orgrim. Would such a person really choose to leave the pirate industry quietly and come ashore with a clear conscience? No matter what, you should get in touch. A firm look flashed in Pero's eyes, as if he had made up his mind. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 547. Just when Pero was thinking about these questions, there was a knock on the door of his candy house. Pero quickly retracted his thoughts, then closed the documents in his hands and placed them on the table. After picking up the cup of black tea, he slowly said, "Come in." Then, the door was opened, and a man wearing the little lion wearing sunglasses walked in. Pokmas, the lion fur tribe. In the original story, he should have sailed with Pedro, defeated the Big Mom pirates, and then joined here. But I don't know what influenced him, but in short, Pokmas joined the Big Mom pirates 2 years ago. And with his outstanding skills, he became an important combatant of the Big Mom pirates. Pero glanced at Pokmas, a little strange, as if this guy was in a bad mood. "What's matter?" "Pork moose," Pero asked. Pokmas was indeed in a bad mood. Although he joined the Big Mom pirates, he was still very affectionate to his hometown. Not long ago, he just received a letter from the Furry Principality. News: the Warhammer pirates raided there and severely injured the Nico Viper boss and even severely disabled him. Duke Inarashi was also defeated. Both the Knights and the Musketeers suffered a disastrous defeat. Subsequently, the Warhammer pirates the regiment sacked the Fuzzy Principality. In short, his hometown suffered a huge blow. As for the historical text of the road sign, no one has said anything about it. Pokmusk doesn't know much about it. Lord Pero, I need to leave Cake Island for some things, so I hope you can give me permission, Pokmus said with a somewhat gloomy tone. Pero was stunned for a moment, and then asked, "What are you going to do?" "Need my help?" Among the Big Mom pirates, Pero and Katakuri are on the same side. Due to Katakuri's outstanding performance and ability, most of the younger brothers and sisters support Katakuri. Behind Pero, although there are some younger brothers and sisters who support him, they are completely unable to compare with Katakuri. The main reason why he can compete with Katakuri is that he also has the power of foreign officials. For example, most of the foreign officials such as Pokmas and Baron Egi support Pero. This is why Pokmas came to Pero to talk about these things. The reason? Pokmas hesitated after listening to Pero's inquiry, and finally said, "My hometown Zo was attacked by the Warhammer pirates and suffered heavy losses. I want to go back and take a look." As soon as Pokmas finished speaking, the Pero man froze. Due to the mystery of the Elephant Master, it is almost difficult for information to be circulated about Zuao. Pero had no idea that the Warhammer pirates had attacked Zo. But soon, Pero realized one thing: this was an opportunity. An opportunity he should seize. Compared with Katakuri, the power in his hands is always lacking. It is too difficult to win over the younger brothers and sisters who stand beside Katakuri from the inside, and even he may not be able to do it. In this way, if you want to increase the power in your hands, you have to consider the outside world. Why did he take the initiative to go to Elbaf before? Doesn't he know that this matter is very risky and has a high failure rate? Of course he knows, but he has to do it, because if he can arrange it, Elbaf and the Big Mom pirates can reach an agreement such as an alliance. Then, Elbaf's power, to a certain extent, is equivalent to his Pero's power, which can overwhelm Katakuri. But that matter ultimately failed. Now, it seems there is a new opportunity. Elephant Lord, Zo, Furry Principality, Fur Tribe. The Big Mom pirates don't have any deep hatred against the Furry Principality. The life and death of the Kojiki family has nothing to do with them. On the contrary, judging from the current situation, it seems that the Big Mom pirates and the Fur Tribe should be in the same natural camp. The enemy of the Fur Tribe is the Beast Pirates, Kaido, who killed Kojiki Odin. One of the main opponents of the Big Mom pirates is also Kaido. Now, the Warhammer pirates have tortured the Fur Tribe again. There is already a deep hatred between the two sides. And it just so happens that the biggest enemy of his Big Mom pirates is the Warhammer pirates. At the same time, having a member of the Fur Tribe like Porkmas under his command, isn't this a God-given opportunity? Once he wins over the Fur Tribe, Perospero will have a new powerful force in his hands to make up for the shortcomings between himself and Katakuri. Thinking of this, Perospero felt a little excited. Originally, he should have told his mother this idea, but now, after the excitement, Perospero started to think about it again. In the end, he suppressed the idea and decided not to tell his mother yet. He would make arrangements first and see how things went. There are thousands of thoughts, but the reality is only a moment. It was clear that Pachmus was in a bad mood at this time, but Perospero felt a little happy. This made him a little ashamed, and out of consideration for the fur tribe, Perospero said very seriously, "This is no small matter, Pachmus, you can go ahead, if you need me, if you need anything, if you want to help, just ask. We are a family. I feel very sad for Ziuao's suffering, especially since these are our common enemies, what the Warhammer pirates did." Pachmus was a little moved. He forced a smile, nodded and said, "Thank you, Lord Perospero, for your understanding. I will keep this kindness in my heart." "You're welcome, we are a family, Pachmus, and you are my most promising subordinate. If there are any problems that cannot be solved when we get to Zo, I will be happy to help," Perospero said with a smile. He did not act too hastily. He is now showing some ideas and signs. This matter can be arranged slowly. Although time seems tight, there is actually still time. "I understand, thank you, Lord Perospero." Pachmus nodded quickly and said, "Okay, go quickly, you must be very impatient, I allow you to call a faster Hamitz ship." Perospero smiled and waved his hands. Soon, Pachmus left here with a lot of thanks. There was also a smile in Perospero's eyes. A good start has been made. There will be a good start. Putting the teacup in his hand on the table, he picked up the document again, and looked at Crocodile on it again. After a long time, he took out the phone bug and fiddled with it a few times. Not long after, the phone bug eye was picked up right away. "Lord Perospero? What are your instructions?" the person on the other side of the phone asked respectfully. "Baron Eggman, come to my candy house. I have a confidential matter that I want to leave to you to do personally," Perospero said to the phone bug in a deep voice. The phone bug also responded quickly, "Yes, Sir Perospero, I will go over now." At the same time, in Avalon, Orgrim was looking at the information in his hand with some surprise, and in front of him were Doflamingo and Gangplank. Doflamingo, there was no grand wedding with Neiman. Just like there was no wedding between Orgrim and Stussy. But in essence, Doflamingo and Neiman have become husband and wife. This matter will spread across the sea in a short time. Now, Doflamingo has truly become Orgrim's younger brother. The relationship has gone a step further. There is nothing big in Dressrosa. Neiman hasn't returned to Avalon for a long time, so Doflamingo stayed here temporarily. Not long ago, he just received a confidential information, so he quickly came to see Orgrim. This is really, no, it's not unexpected, it's just a little early, redhead, Shanks. Orgrim looked at the information in his hand and couldn't help but smile. The information pointed out that on the surface, the king's Shishibukai red-haired Shanks, who was still wandering outside the New World, had now entered a new world. And I came into contact with Katakuri of the Big Mom Pirates. After that, his whereabouts are unknown, and it is speculated that he went to Cake Island. Originally, with the Navy's arrangements, it should be very easy to keep secrets such as sending individuals secretly into the New World. Orgrim and the Warhammer Pirates, even if they have the best intelligence in the pirate world, they cannot know everything, otherwise the Navy would be too idiotic. But unfortunately, this matter is a bit of a coincidence. The Navy will secretly escort red-haired Shanks into the New World, and arrange it for a person with no reputation, Lieutenant General Fergo. Speaking of which, Lieutenant General Fergo was also miserable. Doflamingo assigned him to the Navy very early. He struggled all the way and gradually reached the position of lieutenant general. It's more embarrassing now because he has almost no tasks to do. Doflamingo is the king of the Shishibukai, and the navy does not want to control him. Orgrim has already established relationships with the 5 old stars. The navy will not be able to control him in a short period of time. At the same time, it is unwilling to create a relationship with Orgrim. A head-on conflict between Rem. Originally, Fergo had even moved himself to G-5, hoping to hang out there. If he could become the base commander of G-5, then the navy, the only visible force in the New World, would be secretly controlled in the hands of their pirates. This can be regarded as living up to his undercover status, and it can be somewhat effective. The result was good. Jun, who had a bright future in the headquarters, took the wrong medicine and ended up getting to G-5. Compared to Jun, he, Fergo, is really a younger brother. Jun is a person with a background, strong strength, and fair skin. There are a large number of people in the Navy who are her fans. I am an old bachelor, and I have always been very low-key. In terms of strength and status, I am not as powerful as Jun. How is it possible to win over this base commander? Therefore, in desperation, after struggling with G-5 for a while, Fergo returned to the Navy headquarters again. As time passed, he gradually became one of the lieutenant generals of the Navy headquarters. It's just that he has a low reputation and a low profile, so he doesn't receive any special attention and is very ordinary. Since he was at his headquarters, Fergo did not dare to make any small moves. Therefore, he can be said to be conscientious in fighting crime and punished many pirates. As far as his reputation within the Navy is concerned, he is quite good. He is respected by many people and his subordinates also love him. After 3 years and another 3 years, Fergo is now so confused that he no longer knows his identity. He has been in the Navy longer than he has been a pirate. There is a kind of saying, "Young master, if you don't use me, I will become an admiral of the Navy." A feeling of. I have to say that there is really no one who can do as well as Fergo as an undercover agent. Finally, Fergo, who had nothing to do and acted as a just Superman all day long, was personally assigned a task by the Warring States Marshal. Secretly escort red-haired Shanks into the New World. Well, damn it, didn't you just fall into my hands? The fifth boy, Fergo, accepted this task without hesitation with a heart of justice, and then turned around and sold Shanks. "Young master, I am loyal to you." A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 548. To people like Orgrim and Sengoku, Fergo is just a nobody. But often, many things fail because of the little people getting in the way. I'm afraid red-haired Shanks never dreamed that the Navy could handle such a simple matter as secretly escorting him into the New World. If he really knew the truth, he would regret it very much, right? Regret working with these idiots in the Navy. Red hair, ha 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 ha, this guy is interesting. Orgrim looked at the information in his hand and shook his head with a smile. Fergo specifically noted one thing in the information. That is, Shanks seems to get along very well with Katakuri. The two parties had a long secret conversation before leaving. Because of this note, Orgrim had some thoughts in his mind. Before reaching the relevant cooperation intention with the 5 old stars to solve the Im-sama problem, Orgrim was not surprised at all that the Navy and Shanks teamed up to make some small moves, and he also believed that this purpose was probably for him. But after he and the 5 old stars achieved after this intention to cooperate, Orgrim didn't think that the 5 old stars would spend any effort to deal with him. Orgrim's. Because this is not in the interests of both parties from all aspects. The 5 old stars should have taken care of the Navy. In the Warring States period, although he was a man of means, the Navy was suppressed by the world government after all. He risked being fired to mess with Orgrim. The possibility is equally unlikely, right? Especially in recent years, Orgrim has had almost no conflicts with the Navy, and its main focus has been on the internal struggle of the pirate forces. There was no reason for Sengoku to take advantage of him. Orgrim was not the only pirate. Now, looking at this information, Orgrim finally has some clarity in his heart. The last time, Shanks stirred up troubles in the New World. He acted blindly for a period of time like a bastard, and was kicked out of the New World by Beckman and the others. Orgrim was a little strange at that time. Because in his opinion, Shanks is not a waste, nor is he that incompetent. He lost too easily. He was kicked out of the New World casually, and after that, the Navy didn't show any reaction. But at that time, Orgrim still couldn't figure out why. In the end, it can only be regarded as Shanks' abnormal performance. Now, he understands a little more. Perhaps the goal of Shanks and the Navy is not actually him at all? Do you get along well with Katakuri? This is interesting. Others don't know, but Orgrim still knows some inside information because of Durag. The Big Mom pirates were already deeply divided within the group. Katakuri almost fell out with Charlotte Lingling. Extrapolating Katakuri's character, he is not the kind of person who can easily let go of the death of his brother Daifuku. In other words, Katakuri seems to have reconciled with Charlotte Lingling even now. But there must still be thorns and conflicts between the two. And is there really an unbreakable relationship and bond between Katakuri and Charlotte Lingling? What a fart. Orgrim would never believe this. Katakuri is a person who values his younger brothers and sisters very much. Charlotte Lingling completely treats her children as tools. A lot of people were killed. These two people are not on the same path at all. Putting these pieces of information together, Orgrim seemed to have seen through the fog. Perhaps, the last time Shanks entered the New World, he only did one thing, and that was to test each other with Katakuri. Judging from today's information, it is estimated that their last test had good results. These two guys are very likely to be in cahoots. Then, their goal is obvious. Katakuri has noticed that Charlotte Lingling's ship is in trouble, so he wants to board red-haired Shanks' ship. And Shanks happens to lack a foundation in the New World and an opportunity to reach the top. If he could join forces with Katakuri to get rid of Charlotte Lingling, wouldn't he directly sit in the position of the Yonko? This is a lot more reasonable. That guy is no match for me now, and once he takes the position of the four emperors, he will have the mature combat capabilities of the Big Mom pirates like Katakuri. Only then can he truly possess the ability to compete with Orgrim. Yes, that's it. Red hair, your boy is very powerful. Hiding it from everyone, he secretly laid out such a big plan. If he hadn't happened to be bumped into by the little guy Fergo, I'm afraid there would have been two winners after this round of the battle for kingship in the New World began. One is him, Kazguro's Orgrim, and the other is probably him, the four Emperor Red Hair, who is taking advantage of the situation to rise. However, Orgrim now seems to have seen through Shanks's plan, but he still has no clue what the Navy's plan is. What does this Sengoku guy want to do with his red hair? There is no reason for Sengoku not to know what he can know. After all, he is conspiring with the red hair. Sure enough, compared to Shanks, Sengoku is the most difficult to deal with. I don't even know what he is thinking, Orgrim murmured with some emotion. Master Chui, is this information important? What on earth did that red-haired guy do here? Is there a conspiracy against us? Glank asked curiously. Doflamingo sat aside, frowning from time to time, as if he had some clues, but couldn't figure it out. Gee ha 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 ha, yes or no, I think this guy wants to deal with the Big Mom pirates, Orgrim laughed loudly. As soon as he finished speaking, another lightning flashed in Doflamingo's mind, and all the fog was opened. I see. That's right, Doflamingo said suddenly. Gangplank failed to understand. He looked at Doflamingo and Orgrim strangely and scratched his head. From the beginning, we fell into a misunderstanding. No, it should be said that everyone has fallen into a misunderstanding and was hidden by Shanks. His goal at this stage has never been our Warhammer pirates, but to swallow the Big Mom pirates. Gee ha 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 ha, I almost fell into his trap. Orgrim laughed. Then, Orgrim and Doflamingo explained the analysis to Plank. Plank finally understood the meaning behind it. It's all twists and turns. Although everything is speculation, it has to be said that the authenticity of this speculation is already very high. There is no evidence for many things, and there is no need to get any evidence. When this guy was kicked out of the New World by the Second Master, I thought that was what happened to him. Unexpectedly, this was also part of his plan. It's really awesome, Plank said with some emotion. That guy is indeed very powerful. Among the people who were at the same time as us at that time, he was the only one who deserved my attention the most. Orgrim nodded. He didn't know that besides the red hair, there was also an old Yinbai hiding in the desert. It's no wonder that Orgrim didn't think of it. It was mainly due to impressions and inertial thinking. All the current trajectories of Crocodile are very consistent with the story in Orgrim's impression. In this case, who would have thought that the sand crocodile turned into Lao Yinbai? So how do we arrange for him? Do we really want to let this guy swallow up the Big Mom pirates? Plank asked after thinking for a while. Gee ha 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 ha, if I don't know and his scheme is successful, then it means that he is very capable and willing to admit defeat. If he swallows it, he will swallow it. Do you really think that becoming the 4 emperors will make you equal to me? Orgrim laughed first, and then continued, but now it seems that this guy is not the son of destiny. It's bad luck that we saw through the plan. I suppressed the Big Mom pirates into what they are today. Shanks wants to take food from my mouth? Hee. Phew phew phew, yes, he is unlucky. Doflamingo also smiled and said. Layouts, plans, and conspiracies. When no one sees through it, the power is very huge. Once the operation is successful, the benefits are self-evident. But these things, once it is seen through, it is like tissue paper. It will break if you poke it casually. If you want to deal with this guy, it is very simple now. The first option is to guard against him and create obstacles for him. In my opinion, if he wants to take action, he must first gain the trust of Charlotte Lingling, and the two parties will reach a cooperation or alliance, and then in the next war for kingship, he will seize chestnuts from the fire and complete the feat of snake swallowing an elephant. Then, in this process, we can arrange for Boss Kaido to keep an eye on this guy and create trouble for him when he takes action. Orgrim spoke. But after smiling, he continued, but it's not exciting enough, also a little boring. So what needs to be exciting enough? Interesting enough? Doflamingo raised his eyebrows and looked at Orgrim and asked. Gangplank also smiled and looked at Orgrim, who was full of bad ideas. Orgrim laughed a lot. He picked up the teacup and took a sip, then said leisurely, you guys said that when Shanks and that dead old woman reach an alliance, each of them will be ready, and then, before we start a war, cleverly convey this inside information to the dead old woman. What will happen? In this new war, the initiative is in the hands of Orgrim. The reason is also very simple, because in the entire New World, he is the only one with the ability to launch a new round of war. Charlotte Lingling is also good. Whitebeard, to put it bluntly, does not have this ability for the time being. Of course, Charlotte Lingling must be seeking stability. As for Whitebeard, if he really gritted his teeth, he could still get angry, but it just wasn't appropriate. Looking at it now, everyone is preparing for war, rather than preparing for war like Orgrim. This is initiative. Because he has this initiative, Orgrim can seize the right time and create obstacles for Shanks and Charlotte Lingling. The most important thing about Shanks' plan is to kill Charlotte Lingling from the inside. So he needs to become an alliance with the Big Mom pirates to start arranging these things. Here, it is about a trust issue. Then let this guy do the trouble first, and wait until you have almost arranged it. As soon as I take action, the trust between Charlotte Lingling and you will be broken directly. Let's see how you and Katakuri end up. However, this is just a means. Arrangements must be made for him elsewhere. This is a really bad idea, Doflamingo said, a little funny. Orgrim didn't pay attention to this. Instead, he smiled and shook his head and said, Katakuri, that's interesting. Charlotte Lingling, this dead old woman, is really an idiot. The Yonko is such an embarrassment to us that she did what she did. It seems that after the Battle of Butter Island, Charlotte Lingling, who was once all-powerful and high-spirited, seemed to have lost her mind. There was such a serious problem internally, but she didn't know it. It is such an embarrassment to the four emperors. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 549. It was a great move when you arranged for Fergo to join the navy. Orgrim looked at Doflamingo with a smile. Doflamingo shook his head and said, I didn't think so much at the beginning. I just thought that I should have eyes in the navy to avoid unnecessary trouble. One day the boat capsized in the gutter. That guy has been in the navy for so many years, what arrangements are you going to give him? Orgrim nodded and asked again. Doflamingo hesitated for a moment, and then said, originally, I was planning to let him find an opportunity to withdraw, but now. After a pause, Doflamingo smiled and continued, let him continue to be a righteous marine. I think it may be useful in the future. Now, Orgrim and the world government are in the honeymoon period. As long as Lord Im is alive and the 5 old stars cannot ascend to the true supreme power, there will be a basis for mutual cooperation between them. And once the two sides complete this matter, there will inevitably be a new round of wrestling. This wrestling is the key to truly determining darkness and light, order and chaos in the world in the future. If Orgrim can confront the world government and withstand the pressure from this decadent order, then he can be on an equal footing with the 5 old stars and maintain a balance between order and chaos. This is also what he is pursuing. The key point in this struggle actually lies in the Navy headquarters. As long as the Navy headquarters can't do anything to him, Orgrim, it's almost stable. Then, if Virgo stays in the Navy headquarters, it is indeed possible to provide some help in the future. So Orgrim didn't have any objections. It's just a bit bitter for this guy Fergo. He is obviously an evil pirate, but most of his pirate career was spent wearing a cloak of justice and sitting on a warship. What a legend! While the three of them were chatting about various things, Beckman walked in with his own air purifier Reiju. What are you talking about, you three? Beckman asked with a smile. Orgrim also laughed and said, we have discovered a shocking secret. Let me tell you, you underestimated the red-haired Shanks back then. That guy. Afterwards, Orgrim told Beckman his speculation, and Beckman was also a little surprised. This is really, out of my expectation. Beckman finally smacked his lips and said. He had some arrangements in mind, but now is not the time to talk about this. Beckman smiled and briefly talked about the topic. The reason why a conspiracy is that it cannot be seen through by others. Now, if Shanks has been seen through by us, the threat will not be great. Let alone him, Lucci, Enel and Robin are back. They are at the port and will be here soon. Orgrim smiled when he heard this and asked, these three little guys mysteriously said they were going out. I asked for a long time and didn't say what they were going to do. Now I know they are back, I don't know what the hell happened. After this, Warhammer Pirates added a new roadmap historical text. Although Orgrim didn't care about Ravdru or anything, he was still very satisfied with the gifts and intentions of these three little guys. Extremely happy. What he was happy about was not the historical text of the road sign, but the growth of Enero, Lucci, and Robin, and his intention to plan the future for the Warhammer pirates. The reason why it is difficult for pirates to pass on the legacy is, in the final analysis, because there are two factors. One is that it is difficult to have a successor that is recognized by everyone, and the other is that the inheritance of strength is not inherited from generation to generation. Now, there is an heir recognized by everyone, and that is Andrest, who has the blood of Orgrim. And at least for now, Andrest is not a successor who disappoints everyone. Although he has a special status, he is able to endure hardships and work tirelessly to hone his strength. Recognized by Mihawk and Shiji, recognized by everyone. Perhaps he now seems naive in his thinking and other aspects. But Orgrim is still young, and everyone knows that Andrest still has enough time to grow. In the future, when he goes to sea, writes his own story, experiences his own adventures, and experiences the world, he will grow as he should. As for the inheritance of old and new powers, Orgrim's ideas are divided into two aspects. On the one hand, as a father and the leader of the Warhammer pirates, I want to leave some teammates for Andrest. He has not thought clearly about Enero's words now, but he also feels that it is not suitable to leave it to Andrest. People like Lucci, Yamato, and Runti are quite suitable. On the other hand, he couldn't clearly arrange Andrest's plans. In this sea, there were many outstanding young talents of the new generation who would compete with Andrest on the same stage in the future. Just like he took away Mihawk, took away Beckman, took away Doflamingo and others. In the future, Andrest should also look for his own partners. This is also a kind of growth and cultivation. All in all, the Warhammer pirates currently have no problems with inheritance. Orgrim was very satisfied with the growth and intentions of Robin and others. After this, Avalon held another grand banquet. 3 months later, White Earth Island, Baradigo. This is the headquarters of the Revolutionary Army. It is similar to Punk Hasid. It is an island of non-existence that has no magnetic field and cannot be found by ordinary means. The leader of the Revolutionary Army, Dalag, is here right now. He is packing his luggage. To make revolution, naturally we cannot just talk on paper. Therefore, although the headquarters of the Revolutionary Army is in Baradigo, in fact, this guy Dalag spends most of his time running around the world. This time, some of the Revolutionary Army's forces in the East China Sea have been restricted, and they are likely to encounter a food crisis in the next 6 months. Dalag decided to arrange this matter personally, and went to meet his good friend Mr. Koshiro. Just as Dalag was packing his things, there was a knock on his door. Dalag didn't even look back, and said directly, "Come in." As soon as he finished speaking, Ivankov opened the door and walked in, looked at Dalag and said, "I have packed it up, how are you?" Soon Dalag still didn't look back and said directly, "Mr. Seong is back," Ivankov said again. Dalag paused in his movements. This time, he turned around and said with a smile on his face, "This is really not easy. The Navy gave him this. Are the pirates on vacation?" Ha 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 ha, in the final analysis, it was just cooperation. The Navy did not dare to really force him to do anything. It was just that out of various considerations, he was willing to cooperate with the Navy's work as much as possible, Ivankov said with a smile. If he has enough time, he might as well go to the East China Sea with us, so that we can chat about the past few years on the way, Dalag said with a smile. As soon as he finished speaking, Bartholomew Bear's huge figure squeezed in from outside the door. Unlike in the Navy and in front of most people, here, Bartholomew the Bear's cold expression has dissipated a lot, and there is even a smile on the corner of his mouth. "Long time no see, Mr. Dalag," Bartholomew Bear said with a smile. "Bear," Dalag also called out with some nostalgia. Then, both of them laughed. The Navy's research seems to have reached a bottleneck. Maybe I will take a vacation of 1 or 2 years this time. At the same time, not long ago, I really came into contact with Dr. Vegapunk. but just to be on the safe side, I didn't try it out. I believe there will be opportunities in the future. Bartholomew Seong said softly. Darag nodded, and then said, okay, let's not talk about it for now. I don't have much time to delay. Since you have plenty of time, why don't we let's take a trip to the East China Sea together? Just think of it as a way to relax. If anything happens, we'll talk about it on the way. Good. Bartholomew Bear responded very calmly. At this moment, Ivankov said, by the way, there is one more thing I haven't said yet. What's up? Darag asked. In the desert country of Alabasta, rebellions have become more and more rampant recently due to issues such as rainwater resources and the gap between rich and poor. I always wonder if there is some conspiracy behind this. Our revolutionary military does not need to intervene, Ivankov said. Darag frowned slightly. Then he said, if there is really any conspiracy, it is probably Crocodile. After all, it is his territory, and the royal family of Alabasta still insists. Live. This should be no problem. After all, Alabasta is a powerful military country. The royal family controls a large number of troops. The rebels cannot compare with the regular army in terms of numbers, combat effectiveness, and equipment. Ivankov smiled and said. Then don't worry about it. Alabasta is not that simple, nor is it an ordinary alliance country. They have some special relationships with the world government. Nefertali is a descendant of 20 kings. Our revolutionary army, it's not appropriate to get involved in this matter. Dalag thought for a while and said. If that guy Crocodile is really behind this, that means, is it possible that he not only wants to become a great noble, but even wants to be the king of Alabasta? You just said that Nefertali is a descendant of 20 kings, so will the world government ignore him? Crocodile is not, court death, Ivankov asked in surprise. Dalag smiled and said, no matter what Crocodile wants to do, it has little to do with us. As for whether the world government will do it because of Nefiru, the blood of the Tully clan, and help stop Crocodile and so on, I don't think so. On the contrary, the world government will most likely watch the show. Why? Ivankov asked strangely. This time, it was not Darag who answered him, but Bartholomew Bear. As one of the former members of the royal family, Bartholomew Bear was very knowledgeable about these matters. His views and understanding are much more experienced than Ivankov's. Because the Nefertali clan had many disagreements with the world government as early as 800 years ago. Otherwise, they would not have chosen to return to Alabasta and give up their identity as celestial dragons. Secondly, for many years, Alabastistan has different views and thinking from the world government on various matters. Although both parties are within the category of franchised countries, in fact, it's not really a group of people. It's just that due to Alabasta's special status and the blood of the Nefertali family, it is difficult for the world government to deal with Alabasta like it does with other member countries. If Crocodile is king under the status of Shishibukai, it is actually a good thing for the world government to eliminate the Nefertali clan, Bartholomew Bear said softly. What's so good about it? Ivankov asked with some confusion. Darag smiled and said softly, at least, if the world government wants to solve a king's Shishibukai, it will not be so restrained. This is Crocodile and Crocodile. The essential differences between the Nefertari clan. In other words, the world government can be considered as driving the tiger to devour the wolf. After Crocodile has eliminated the Nefertali clan, if Crocodile is obedient, nothing will happen. If he is disobedient, the world government can free its hands and feet to eliminate him. Ivankov figured it out this time and said softly. Roughly the same. Drag nodded, and then said, but Crocodile is not a fool, and Nefertali's identity is not a special secret. If he really dares to do it, he should have some countermeasures. We can't guess what the specific situation is, but again, it has nothing to do with us. Don't get involved in the Alabasta issue. Tisk tisk, as expected, you people have dirty hearts. Ivankov smacked his lips and said with some emotion. Darag didn't pay attention, smiled casually, and continued to pack things. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 550. Desert Country Alabasta. There are currently two most prosperous areas in Alabasta. The first is the royal capital, Albana. The second is the emerging city of Udi. In recent years, the climate in Alabasta has been very strange. Except for a few important towns, most places have fallen into drought. This is undoubtedly very scary for a desert country. Fortunately, the drought is not very serious and everyone can still live. But recently, sharp contradictions have emerged within the entire country. The rebels had their roots many years ago. As the gap between the rich and the poor within Alabasta gradually increases, the climate changes abnormally, and rumors of dancing fans are secretly circulating. As a result, these rebels have not only not been wiped out in recent years, but have even become more and more violent. It can be said that there is crocodile's conspiracy and manipulation. It can also be said that this is due to the incompetence of the Nefertali family. Speaking of conspiracy, Crocodile's Baroque Works and Rainland's Rainy Banquet Casino have been working hard to slowly disrupt Alabasta's internal economic situation over the years. Let the wealthy aristocracy get richer, make the middle class bankrupt, and make the low-income and proletarians poorer and poorer. At the same time, Crocodile is also secretly supporting the rebels' equipment and funds, and from time to time uses some dancing powder to aggravate climate change and spread rumors. That's right, in fact, the methods used by Crocodile were very simple. It was said to be a conspiracy, but it didn't have any high-end feeling. But unfortunately, it was this simple conspiracy that made Alabasta a mess. However, the Nefertali royal family did not respond effectively. When Orgrim first set foot in this country, he felt very strange about the Nefertali royal family. Because of this royal family, well, no, it should be said that the king of this generation of Alabasta, Nefertali Cobra, a political retard? Call him a good person, yes, he is 100% a good person. But as a king, his methods and thoughts were too naive, so naive that his intelligence level was doubted. In the original story, Nefertali Cobra watched helplessly as Alabasta was tortured by Crocodile until the people of Alabasta were in dire straits. He clearly knew that there must be a mastermind behind this. But unfortunately, he just couldn't think of Crocodile. Isn't this something wrong with your brain? All of Alabasta, with names and surnames, can compete with a superpower that can be called a military power in the world, that is, the King Shishibukai who claims to have the combat power to rival the country, okay. Crocodile was almost acting openly. There is no trace of this guy Cobra. In other words, he is too obsessed with evidence. The country was about to collapse, so he still had to find some evidence before taking action? Isn't there something wrong with this? For any normal monarch, when there is such a huge internal problem in the country, let alone looking for any bullshit evidence, even if it is not Crocodile who did it, he will be dragged out to take the blame. It is reasonable to establish a powerful external enemy, divert internal conflicts, vent domestic anger, and then use this to regain control of the situation, rectify the country's internal affairs, resolve conflicts, and redistribute resources. But Nefertali Cobra did nothing. Then, when it comes to dealing with the rebels, he is simply naive to the point of being cute. Most countries are very ruthless when it comes to dealing with rebels. As long as you dare to rebel, no matter what the reason is, you will never be forgiven. Otherwise, it will set a precedent. Even if the rebellion finally subsides, it will definitely shake the foundation of the country. Because you won't deal with these rebels severely today. Then, the message conveyed to the outside world is the concept of lowering the cost of crime. Good guy, you don't need to be beheaded for rebellion? Is there such a good thing? Then today they can raise rebels to rebel just because they don't have enough food to eat and it doesn't rain. Then tomorrow, if I, the second dog, step on a banana peel and throw the dog into shit, wouldn't it mean that you have not done a good job in building urban civilization and are not worthy of being a king, so you will also rebel? What are you afraid of? He won't die anyway. Maybe it was successful? Wasn't that a serf who suddenly turned over and sang? However, this guy Cobra insists on loving the rebels as if they were his own family members. He can beat you as much as you want, but I won't fight back. Hundreds of thousands of rebels are about to attack the capital Albina. In this critical situation of life and death, the king's army must insist not to attack first. This is not a brain problem. What is the problem? What's more, allowing the rebels to grow to hundreds of thousands is enough to prove how stupid he is. That is to say, he was lucky, met the protagonist group, and was saved a lot of lives. Otherwise, 10 heads would not be enough to be chopped off. It can only be said that Cobra does not have the talents and qualifications of a king. This is a good destiny according to the 8 classics. The past kings of Alabasta worked hard to govern and left him a rich family background. Even if he behaves like this, Alabasta will still be able to establish a strong foothold in the world and remain a powerful military power. Even if his political IQ is low, he is still able to meet the protagonist group at a critical moment of life and death, come to do justice, and work diligently to the king. But this time, he may not have such a good life. The invisible pressure brought by Orgrim affected Crocodile, who was originally a degenerate saltfish. This time, Crocodile is more powerful, and at the same time, his plan is more closely integrated. Even because Nico Orbia replaced Robin, his plan progressed more smoothly. The process and speed, all improved a lot. In addition, the opponents, the Nefertali royal family, are simply too stupid. If it weren't for the good foundation of the previous kings of Alabasta, Cobra would have been able to accumulate a good reputation with his style until he encountered any other problems. Crocodile needs to take this into consideration and use gentler methods. He may have already pushed Nefertali Cobra to the ground and rubbed her. At this time, he was in the underground secret office of Yuyan, a big casino. Crocodile was looking at a financial statement in his hand. During this period of time, the domestic situation in Alabasta has become increasingly chaotic, coupled with the Golden City's publicity campaign, which is known as the world's #1 entertainment city. Even if it didn't open, it would really affect Yuyan's income. Compared with the previous quarter, Yuyan's revenue dropped by about 7 percentage points this quarter. In fact, this kind of loss is already very high. But there was nothing dissatisfied about Crocodile's expression. He didn't seem to care about it at all. Crocodile was holding a report, sitting in his boss's chair, biting a cigar, looking very casual. But the power on him appeared and disappeared, giving people a strong oppressive force. Standing in front of his desk is Mr. Galdino. At this time, Galdino was very scared. He is one of the top 5 cotters of Baroque working group. It is conceivable that he also has a high status in this criminal group. However, today was the first time he saw his real boss. Yes, Crocodile's true identity is also a top secret even to Baroque works. Many cotters know that the boss is very mysterious, but no one seems to know who the boss is except Mr. 1 Das Bonus. Galdino was the person in charge of Yuyan this quarter. As a result, Yuyan's income declined for the first time since its inception, and he was notified to meet his big boss. After arriving, they discovered that the boss was actually King Shishibukai Sand Crocodile. Do you think he can keep his heart from breaking down? Then I thought about the many rumors that people who had seen the boss would mysteriously disappear. I also looked at the banana crocodile swimming in the huge floor-to-ceiling fish tank not far away. Gardino was about to pee with fear. Crocodile slowly exhaled a puff of smoke, then raised his eyes to look at the frightened Galdino, and asked if I remember correctly, this is the first time that Yuyan has experienced a decline in revenue since it opened. Right. A line of sweat ran down Gardeno's forehead. After swallowing, he said nervously, I'm sorry, boss, yes. It's nice that you didn't look for reasons to defend yourself. Crocodile raised the corners of his mouth slightly and smiled evilly. Galdino was extremely nervous, fearing that his head would be missing in the next second. Before Galdino could speak, Crocodile, he continued, it's nothing. Pele's amount is not an important thing to me. There is something I have to leave to you to do. Galdino, Pele can earn less, but if the thing can't be done, okay, no need for me to say anything harsh to you, right? Yes, it's the boss, Gardino responded quickly. It seems that he doesn't have to die. Are you good at intrigues? Hide yourself? Go to the new world, then, and be my eyes. Crocodile said with an evil smile. The Galdino people were all stupid. Me? Going to the new world? Boss, the new world is a paradise for the strong. A novice like me can only live in the Grand Line. In the first half, he was so arrogant. If he went to the new world, he might not know how he would die. He still didn't give Galdino a chance to speak. Crocodile continued, I screened many Baroque work companies. People, and finally discovered that you are the most despicable, cunning, and insidious guy. What you are good at is not managing these Baileys and wealth in the rain feast. Use your talents to go to the new world and form a Baroque working community. Department, of course, don't use the name Baroque Works. In fact, Crocodile was a little helpless. His younger brothers were all rubbish. He picked through this pile of garbage, and finally found that it seemed that this was the only one who could be used. Galdino heard Crocodile talk to this extent, how could he dare to say no? If I reject my boss at this time, I'm afraid I won't be able to walk out of this office alive today. I will do my best to do this, boss, Gardino said quickly. Crocodile nodded with satisfaction. If nothing else, this guy is at least very smart and did not cause trouble for himself here. He has a very correct attitude. Crocodile was also in a good mood. Very generously, he opened the drawer, took out a notebook from it, and threw it out. With quick hands and eyes, Galdino quickly stepped forward to catch the notebook. It contains the domineering practice method. This is considered an entry-level thing in the new world. You can study it yourself without any psychological burden. I don't ask you to make any particularly powerful results. The new world requires in a few years, there will be chaos. I just hope that at that time, I don't become a blind man who can't see anything. That's enough. Crocodile said softly. Got it, boss, Gardino responded quickly. Of course, if you do well enough and exceed my expectations, then you will also receive generous rewards. I'm very optimistic about you, go down. Crocodile waved his hand and gave a final warning. Galdino nodded very respectfully and quickly withdrew. After closing the office door, he suddenly let go of his breath. His boss, it seems very powerful. New world. It seems that the performance of the boss, King Shichibukai, in the rumors cannot be taken seriously. However, although it is very dangerous, it seems that this is also an opportunity for me. If things get done, maybe. Thinking of this, Gardino was still a little excited.